Hello, my name is Nathaniel Lerma, and today I'm going to be talking about independent film and how it can be told in many different ways. Now, these different ways can depend on the person directing it, how big the budget is, and its message and themes. Probably the greatest example of these differences come from the famous indie film director Bong Joon-ho. Director Bong has a large filmography, but today I'm going to be focusing on three of his works that really put into perspective these three different aspects: direction, budget, and themes. I'm going to be discussing the three films Barking Dogs Never Bite, his directorial debut, the blockbuster hit Snowpiercer that had a much larger budget despite still being a independent film, and his most recent, an Oscar-winning film I'm sure many of you have heard of, Parasite. Starting off the list with Barking Dogs Never Bite. This was Bong's directorial debut, and with a budget of less than $1 million, which is incredibly low for any given film, you honestly really can't tell. When I viewed it, it really exceeded at making the most with this smaller budget, which is something I do think Bong exceeds at amazingly, but we'll talk about that later. While many criticize this film for being slowly paced and weirdly shot, with even Karen Hahn of Roger Ebert's review page describing it as filled with protagonists, just as capable of monstrous deeds as his ostensible villains. Honestly, I really love this quote because it's so true. In a lot of Bong's films, he plays with these themes of this flawed protagonist or protagonists. And for the most part, the characters really do reflect reality, real people in all the quirks and errors and hardships that they have. This movie did flop at the box office. It did insanely bad. It did eventually break even in the future. It's kind of become more of a cult hit now, but it is still one of Bong's probably less liked films overall through his filmology. And it's interesting to see him start to bring to life his themes of realism and incorporating like the modern world and social structure into his stories. As we'll see later, he continues to play with these similar themes and ideas in different ways because of the different mediums and who he's selling this to. But this is a really good starting point for looking at his work. I mean, it is his first film, but yeah. Now on to Snowpiercer. And while I was not as enthralled by this as much as Dogs Never Bite and Parasite, it was a much bigger budget, costing around $44 million to make, and tackles many, if not at all, or not all, of the same themes, such as poverty, social and class structures, and what it means to be alive and live. Now, this film is probably the most serious film in Bong's entire filmography, and there was definitely a lot riding on this, so it needed to do well, and it did. Breaking Korean records and even being distributed to the United States and China. However, its critics bring up some good and valid arguments. Jordan Alder of We've Got This Covered described it as saying, its formidable direction is bogged down by poor writing, half-instituted effects, and a thin exploration. And I really can't help but to agree. Perhaps it's because I'm a writer myself, but a lot of the dialogue in the film is not strong, to say the least. This film had a lot to say, and I felt as though it bit off a bit more than it could chew. Even Bong felt relief as he finished this project, relating it to cutting out a cancer. While these themes and styles stay very alive and frequent in Bong's other works, it seemed to be a lot more of a spectacle and show in this much bigger production and this much bigger budget for Bong's indie film. It was still a great story, but it felt as it was unfocused and overall brought down the quality of this film. Which brings us to this last film to examine. Parasite. Parasite really feels like an amalgamation of these themes, ideas, and social commentary to create an absolutely strong film. As Bong's classic dark humor, with an earnest and modest budget of only around $11 million, the film really stands on its two legs. With a lighter budget, the film definitely feels more focused. The direction never really misses a beat, and humor is used expertly to comment on social issues in South Korea. I think many people can really relate and connect to these realistic and charming characters, and see a lot of themselves in this family. I think that's what Parasite does best with its production. It takes the average viewer home, and it's Bong's truest confession in writing and on film. The awards really do speak for itself. Overall, I hope this gave you a better insight into independent films and how budgets can affect the strength of a story, even though they have similar themes, storylines, and even directors. Again, I'm Nathaniel Lerma. You have a great one.